Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here, and today I am so glad to be joined by award-winning singer, preacher, yes you are, husband, father, and now anti-human sex trafficking advocate, Tauren Wells. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Glad to be here. Or here and you're there, but we're together on the screen.
Right, right. This is the new normal that we
It
have going
is.
on. But it's nice to see you anyway. You have a new single that is incredible. Initially, I thought, oh, okay, an anti-sex trafficking song. Just I did not expect it to be so. It touched me so deeply. Um, All God's Children.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about this single, the process. The first, we can start with the inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, it just to me, it just felt like a human talking about something real. It didn't feel like something produced or like this production that was going to be, glitter and all that. It was
Right.
human and it was so beautiful. Talk about
Yeah.
it.
Well, thank you. That's an extraordinary compliment. Um, well, initially, this started with conversations that my wife and I were having around the issue of human trafficking and the sexual exploitation specifically of children. And, I read a book when I was, I don't know, 14 about slavery and how people were in slavery now, more in the world now than have been, certainly in America's history. Uh, but, it's kind of something that I was aware of, but I had no empathy toward. And so my wife was showing me different articles, different things were popping up. There was all this energy around this topic in Hollywood and different spaces, for a long time. And so we were just talking about it. And I was kind of like, man, this is terrible. I can't believe this is happening. Some of it is like, well, some of that feels a little conspiracy theory, it can't really be like that true. And this, I know it's a reality, but I'm invested in a lot of other things, that are also important. And so I kind of just pushed it to the side. And then she sent me a video of Blake Lively talking explicitly about what was happening in the lives of those who are held captive by this unbelievable evil. And I really don't have any other language for it other than I was grieved. Like
Mm.
that's a church word. I
But
understand
it's
that, but
right.
I was
Yeah.
just deeply grieved, sorrowful. It's like an unshakable conviction that you feel and sorrow. And I knew I had to do something, that the awareness was not enough, apathy was not enough, action was required.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like such a huge issue. And for those that may not know some of the statistics around it, but over 40 million men, women, and children are enslaved all over the world and in a trafficking system where they are bought and sold for all kinds of things, you know, even like labor in inhumane
Mm-hmm.
conditions, but primarily for sexual exploitation and abuse. And I think 70% are women, and the high percentage of that is children. And it's a terrible reality. These kids are being abused sexually over 5 times a day. And it's just, I have kids. I have three little boys, and my mind cannot imagine or fathom me never seeing them one day and knowing this is their reality. So had to do something, but it's so big. It's $150 billion industry.
Wow.
Most of it happens online and dark corners of the internet and dark corners of our world, dark corners of our cities. You know, Houston is the number one hub for sex trafficking. So this is a problem that
In the country?
in the country,
Wow.
yes. So this is a problem that exists like in the cities that we live in. And you may think, not my city, it's happening in your city.
Yeah.
Um, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So all of that considered, I'm like, I'm too small. There's no, am I gonna turn into Liam Neeson and like kick down the doors of one of these places that this is happening and rescue people? No, that's not gonna happen. So I was struggling with, where do I engage? And at that time, I was about a week into trying to figure this out. I saw my friend Tim Tebow posting a lot around this particular issue, anti-slavery and human trafficking. And I didn't know that he was like this invested. I thought maybe, God was elevating this issue in his heart too, and they were getting engaged in the fight. So I was like, that's awesome that Tim's doing that. What a guy. Here he is hosting events for special needs kids all over the world. And now he's adding, human trafficking advocate, which he looks like a superhero. So it just seems like this is
He
right up his
does.
alley. I'm like,
Right.
his platform, all of that. Of course, he's doing this. I need to do something like that. Maybe I start a movement. Maybe I start an organization. So I start kicking around all of these grand ideas. Then I woke up one morning and I saw his Instagram post, and it was a statistic about human trafficking. And this had to be the Lord, because, like, my prideful self probably wouldn't just naturally think of this. But it was like, instead of starting your own fight, why
Mm.
don't you join Tim in his?
Yeah.
I think so many times these things seem so big, and it's like, if we do feel like we have to do something, it's got to be big. It needs an Instagram page. It needs a website. It needs all blah, 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 blah. Instead of looking around and seeing, what are people already doing and how can I participate?
Right.
So I called Tim and I was like, hey, man, I see what you're doing with the foundation. I would love to hear more about it. And honestly, my wife and I would love to be involved and contribute in some way. So he begins to tell me about the time that his dad called him and said, Timmy, I just bought four girls. And Tim's like, what do you mean you bought four girls? He said they were being sold to someone. So I took all the money I had out of my wallet. It was $1,200. That was his money to get back home. And he said, I used that money to buy these girls. And that was almost 13 years ago now. And that is when they started rescue missions and safe houses.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so he has actually been a part of this for 12 years.
I
They've
didn't know
created
that.
a worldwide network with other partnerships that facilitate rescue missions, that create safe houses, that go into communities and build infrastructures around families and around communities that give them options that are much better than selling their own family members to
Right.
try and make ends meet so that they can survive. So
Wow.
he said, dude, why don't you just write a song? Duh. I was like, why didn't I think of that? He said, you can write the theme
Mm,
song for our anti-human trafficking ministry. And
wow.
I was like, yes, I will absolutely do that.
And it's brilliant. I mean, let's talk about that process. Sitting down to write such a heartbreaking song. What do you do? Where do you go mentally? Where do you,
Yeah.
how are you preparing your heart for to share such a heavy topic with, in music?
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is within my own heart, God had been cultivating this for probably 8 weeks before we actually got to the writing session. So I was thinking about it, it was in my heart. And I looked on my writing calendar and I had a session set up with two awesome friends of mine, Bernie Herms, who is an amazing producer songwriter, and Ethan Hulse, who is also an amazing producer songwriter. And so on my flight out, right before the flight, I hit him and I was like, hey guys, I want to let you know Tim Tebow has asked me to write the theme song for their foundation for their anti-human trafficking ministry. And I thought it would be cool to try and chase something together if you guys are down to do it. They both immediately hit me back. Yes, absolutely would love to. Let's do it. By the time I landed in Nashville that night, Ethan sent me a memo and it was the hook. All God's children made in his image,
Wow.
perfectly loved. Almost the whole thought was right there. And my mind was blown. I was like, dude, yes, this is exactly what we need. So the next day we got into the room and honestly, it was it was God breathing into the room the right words, the right spirit, the right tone of everything.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is we started that day with Tim on FaceTime and he was sharing his heart, a lot of the things that he had talked to me about with Ethan and Bernie. And Bernie has been invested in this, I think
Yeah.
since like 2004 or 2007. It's been a long time.
Right. His wife has, yeah.
Yeah, has her own thing that she's doing, Natalie Grant,
Yes, for those
little
that don't know.
little artist, little she'll make it someday. We're praying for her. She and Bernie are amazing, but he started sharing his stories of when he got rocked by this reality years ago and how they've been in the fight. So it was beautiful that all of that story and all that experience came together and we were able to write this song. And to your point about it feeling human, we wanted that from the beginning. It was like we wanted to tell it as honest as possible, but to keep it hopeful.
Right. And
And
that to me is really hard to do with
yeah, it is.
such a heavy, an awful topic, and it's brilliant. And like you said, obviously it had to be God breathed because it was
Yeah.
done perfectly. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I love that Tebow's foundation is doing rescue missions, things like that, tangible things. I think a lot of people look at human trafficking and they get overwhelmed. They're like, what can, like you said, what can little old me do,
Hmm.
about this? So what do you say to those people who feel like there's nothing I can really do though?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it's a great question and it's an honest one. And I think a lot of us, we've got great intentions. I mean, there are no believers that I know that would, or just humans. I mean, a very small segment of humanity,
right.
it seems to me, would see a child being abused
Yeah.
or hurt or any defenseless person. And then it's like, yeah, that's too bad. That happens,
Yeah.
and just move on with your everyday scheduled events. if we saw that happening, it would break our hearts and we would do something about it. So I think our intentions are right. We just need direction for our intentions. And that was the hope of this song, honestly, was that there would be well-intentioned people like myself, like my wife, who want to do something but don't know where to start. Well, with all God's children, you can start by streaming. It's
Right.
that easy. Every stream breaks chains. 100% of the proceeds of this song are going to fuel rescue missions and safe houses and community development. 100%. So, at the very least, it's not kicking down a door. It's not lobbying on a government level. Maybe eventually your life leads you to those actions, but it could literally be a stream. And we started that 24-hour Change the World challenge that we did, and we had people streaming it all over the world. The song went number one on iTunes and went super high on Apple Music, top 40, and which is very difficult to do. And it was all grassroots. There wasn't like radio promotion and all of that. We had great buy-in from Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora. All of these digital service platforms made it a thing that they were going to make this song visible. And we saw thousands and thousands and thousands of streams and downloads of the song. And that was the base. I think one thing that we overlook is that this is a spiritual problem.
Mm.
It is a practical problem and we need practical solutions. But above anything else, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. We're not wrestling human beings, we're wrestling evil spirits. And I know that can get kind of heavy and weird to some people, but that's the reality.
Yeah, bring it
There
on.
is a spiritual realm that exists to dismantle everything God has designed. And if he can do it in infancy or in childhood, he's going to make his best attempt to do it. We see it all throughout scripture, the genocide of young people. We see it in the spirit of Herod when he wipes out all of the Hebrew boys under a certain age because he's uh, afraid of Jesus, and it continues on throughout. The same spirit is alive and active in the world today. So spiritual issues require spiritual solutions. So we need people to pray. We need people to, here's a church word for you, okay? Intercede.
Yeah.
Intercede means to pray in the spirit on behalf of someone else. And we need that happening. We need intercessory prayer is what it's called. You can Google that. It's where you are praying specifically for the needs of other people. We'll take something that you mentioned under your breath. We'll take the 5 minutes in your car for prayer. That's awesome. But we need people who will get down on their knees, cry tears into their carpet, to that God would pull back the curtain that hides this evil from public view and expose the plots and schemes of evil people in high places. That's just the reality of it. We need people to pray. And then if you go to the timtebowfoundation.org, timtebowfoundation.org, you can join the fight, and there are 3 different levels that you can join on. I don't know them all by heart. One's defender, one's
I'll find
advocate.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let people know about that. But there are practical ways through the Tim Tebow Foundation that you can help as well if you want to do more than just stream the song.
I love it. So many people don't realize the power that there is in prayer and even coming together in one voice, petitioning God to do that. So I appreciate that call. I think a lot of people do get stuck in one way or the other, but you're right. It's collective. It's a collective effort that's going to make the difference. So you
Yeah.
have a concert that you're hosting at your church, Lakewood in Houston?
Yeah, we did. So we actually 1 year ago, believe it or not, a whole year ago, last January, the album Citizen of Heaven came out, and we did the Citizen of Heaven live experience at my home church and at Lakewood Church in Houston. And it was an unbelievable night. I had Gary LaVox from Rascal Flatts there, Christine DeClario, Jen Johnson from Bethel Music. We were all there, and it was an over the top. Lakewood is an arena, so
Yeah.
we put on an arena show to celebrate the album coming out, and God's presence showed up. It was powerful. It was fun, and it happened a year ago. However, the whole world gets to experience Citizen of Heaven live on K-Love on demand starting, what are the dates? January
It's yeah,
14th through the
tomorrow.
28th.
Yeah,
Yes.
tomorrow. So
Yes.
that's amazing. So this was filmed a year ago?
It was filmed a year ago. So let me just put that out there already. Nobody's wearing masks. Nobody's socially distanced. It's how life used to be in January of 2020, and it is honestly so
Can't wait.
fun. I can't wait for
Yeah.
people to watch it.
Yeah, can't wait either. Question about ministry and performing and church and everything during these times. How's it been for you? Is Lakewood open again? I thought I saw something that they were.
Lakewood has reopened.
Yes.
We reopened, I want to say in October,
Yeah, right.
maybe. Yeah. But we did services with no one in the room for 5 months. I mean, for a
Wow.
long time. We did services with no one in the room, just because Pastor Joel has a great relationship with the city officials, and
Yeah,
we wanted to do everything that we could to honor the city. You know, um, Obviously, there's a fine line between the government mandating what you can and can't do, as an American. We have beliefs that we hold as Americans, but we also have beliefs that we hold as Christians that supersede our rights as Americans. So I think that it's been a difficult time for spiritual leaders to navigate
right.
all of this and not have haters on both sides. But we've been open and we've been having amazing services. The cool thing is, through 2020, in all of its heartache and tragedy and disappointment, the scripture says that this is the church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So closing the doors to the church really only advanced the church. Our viewership doubled one weekend and then tripled the next. Over 4 million viewers all over the world every
Amazing.
weekend. And, there's a big TV ministry with Lakewood that doesn't count any television or anything, just online people being a part. And then the reach of the humanitarian things that we do for people has been unbelievable. We've done more as a church than we've ever done, and it's been amazing to be a part of.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are a part of that and even sharing that because Lakewood gets a lot of hate as well. And what people don't realize is the amount of humanitarian work and help that you guys do provide to the community there in Houston, and just
And around the
even
world.
collect. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful for you, Torin. I pray that the Lord will continue to breathe upon everything that you do. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or delve into a little bit more?
No, I think that's it. I would just, and I know you're going to do this, but encourage people again to go check out the song All God's Children. We also have merch available. 100% of the merch proceeds go to the Tim Tebow Foundation to fuel rescue missions as well. So there are ways that you can get involved and participate.
Last thing, if there was anything that you have to say that people probably don't know about this initiative about human sex trafficking, something that has not been out there in the media, what would it be?
Mm. Well, I think to pull back a little bit from that question, what you said was great with, what may not be in the media. It's not in the media, and every time something like this comes up, it's not covered by the media. That's why one of the lines in the song says, I don't need the news to legitimize it. This is happening. There are stories that I'm hearing every day of women, children, men, boys, and girls that this is their reality until someone rescues them from it. There is no other way out. And so this is our fight. It is a fight that is happening. And the more hands that we have in the fight, the better the chances we have of winning. So don't wait for the news to legitimize it, for some big story to break to get involved. Let this be your invitation to combating one of the greatest, if not the greatest evil that exists in the world today.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I'll be sure to sound the alarm and make sure
Come
that,
on.
what that does is just encourages me more. And I pray that it'll do the same for everybody else to not be silent.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Torin.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.